Maximilian Reichsgraf von Spee of the German Imperial Navy was one of the most famous admirals in World War I. When the war broke out, he was outnumbered and outgunned far away in the Pacific Ocean. His chances of survival were so slim, yet he led his men several nautical miles away from Atlantic Ocean, wreaking havoc on his enemy all the way. Hi, I'm Cokorda Gede Bagus Modera Cakrakelasa, and number 6 in my class, and I'm from the 10th grade of Science 1. Welcome to the video, and here we're going to talk about a living legend from one of the most famous and impactful event of the human history, the World War I. Maximilian Johannes Maria Hubert Reichsgraf von Spee was born on June 27, 1861 at Copenhagen, Denmark. He was the fourth son of a century-old noble family. His father was Earl Rodolph von Spee. His ancestors and relatives accumulated a great deal of wealth and property in the Lower Rhine. Maximilian von Spee received his primary and secondary education at Lucerne, Switzerland. At 1878, he joins the Navy as a cadet, when the German Navy had only found 6 months earlier with the sole purpose to defend the German coastline. Though 4 years later, when the war broke out, it was one of the most modern war fleet in the world, surpassed only by the Royal Navy. After quite a while building up his career in the Navy, von Spee finally promoted into a Rear Admiral at 1910, and at December 1912, he took command over the German East Asia Squadron. This squadron's primary function was to secure and defend Germany's colonies and naval bases, more generally the interest of the German Empire on the East Asia and South Pacific. Later in 1913, von Spee finally became a Vice Admiral. In the 4 months immediately following the outbreak of the war, multiple naval engagements took place in the Pacific Ocean. The Imperial Squadron was already at a disadvantage right from the beginning, but von Spee decided to fight, always keeping his eyes on his next supply stations, since the war preventing any supplies from arriving from home. In August, von Spee was anchored near the Mariana Island, a small group of Micronesian islands, which were German colony at that time. He was there with the SMS Gneisenau and the flagship SMS Scharnhorst, 2,000 nautical miles from the German supply station at Qingdao. Now that Britain and Japan already blockaded the Bay of Kiao, which meant von Spee could not return to base, so then he decided to head out into the Pacific. So first, von Spee gathered all his ships near the Pagans Island. But since there weren't any supply station around there, he decided to start a cruiser war in order to secure his food and coal supplies. But though that being said, he didn't engage in any battles with enemy ships though. Instead, he raided cargo ships for supplies. Then he headed towards South America, thinking that it would be easier to supply his ships from a neutral harbors there. From August the 12th, von Spee lost radio contact and was on his own with his squadron. The 13,000 nautical miles to the west coast of South America were a gigantic endeavor for the East Asia Squadron. At the end of August, they began their journey and reached Eastern Islands after stops in Samoa and Tahiti. On October 3rd, von Spee managed to establish radio contact with the cruiser Dresden and the Leipzig. He ordered them to regroup near the Eastern Island, but the Royal Navy intercepted the radio messages from the Leipzig. But von Spee had Leipzig sending the radio messages in order to make it look like the ship was alone. It was a trap. And the British ships under the command of Sir Admiral Christopher Cradock took the bait. On November 1st, 1914, the Battle of Coronel took place in the neutral Chilean waters. The German East Asia squadrons managed to sink antiquated British ships the HMS Hope and the HMS Monmouth with their entire crew of 1,600 men, and Admiral Christopher Cradock was among the dead. The Germans only suffered 3 men injured. This defeat crushed the image of the invincible Royal Navy, it being the first defeat over 100 years of a British squadron. While von Spee was celebrated in Germany, the Royal Navy, well, were understandably furious. They ordered Vice Admiral Dafton Sturdy along with the battlecruiser Invincible and Inflexible to hunt down von Spee. The thing is, though von Spee had won the Battle of Coronel, he used up half of his ammunition supply, and that was incredibly tough to replace. So because the German East Asia Squadron already lost a lot of supplies, they need to stop at several places to gather more. Their first stop is the Alejandro Selkirch Island for coal supplies. The second is where they're gonna get a very heroic welcome from the German population there, which is the Chilean coastal town Valparaiso. And the last one, again, is gonna be for coal, but this time they're gonna get resupplied by the German cargo ship, and they're gonna stop at the Gulf of Peñas. And after they live in the harbor of San Quentin, the heavy weather comes and makes the German have to throw most of their coal supplies overboard. Due to this, the German squadron is again out of supplies. Later, von Spee decided to raid Falkland Island to gather more coal. His plan is first to raid Falklands, second, arrest the governor, and the third, to destroy the British radio station there. But the German is unaware of the British squadron sent to hunt down von Spee. On December 7th, when Admiral Sturdy reached the port to resupply, the German East Asia Squadron reached the port and the following day. And by the time the German squadron got spotted, Admiral Sturdy then cast off, sinking the SMS Gneisenau, Scharnhorst, Nuremberg, and the Leipzig. Von Spee's decision to attack Falklands then turns out into a calamitous mistake, putting an end on the East Asia Squadron. Maximilian Reichsgraf von Spee was considered a great admiral, despite his ultimate defeat, because he is able to act and maneuver his ships brilliantly even in despite and futile situations. His glory also based at naval victory at Cornell. But there's also his decisions that wrote a piece on naval history. The cruiser SMS Emden that he ordered to remain in the Pacific Ocean sank 16 enemy cargo ships in only weeks in the fall of 1914. In 1934, the German Kriegsmarine named their heavy cruisers after von Spee, and also the German Navy named their school frigates after him as well. Numerous streets and squares in Germany also carry out his name. So what do you think, people? Do you think von Spee's deeds are already good enough to be considered as a legend? Or perhaps a might? Well, it is your right to decide. Anyway, thanks for watching, have a good Thursday, cheers, and see you next time.